What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment. In this video, I want to go over my picks for the top 5 best changes from the comic books to the television series for The Walking Dead. I'm also going to be releasing my top 5 worst changes from the comics to the television show, so make sure to check back on the channel for that. Keep in mind these are just my opinions. I'm a big fan of the comic series. I think it's superior in most ways, but there are a few really notable changes that the show has made over the 4 seasons that it's ran so far that really stand out to me and really give it its own personality. And I want to go over those. These are my top 5 best changes from the comic book series to the show. Number 5 is the addition of Daryl. Most people would put Daryl higher up on the list than this. He's the fan favorite, and I do like the character, but there are also some major problems I have with him as well. Notably, his lack of character development. We don't really know much about Daryl. He is awesome. He's great in every scene he's in. He's badass fighting zombies. But he's not necessarily the most well-rounded character as of yet, and I haven't really been into either of the possible relationship pairings that they put him in. I don't really believe the relationship he has with him and Rick, so although he is cool, I couldn't put him any higher than number 5. He's a great addition to the show, though. If you've got to add a character, because there's been some really poor character additions, and I'll go over some of those in my top 5 worst changes from the comic to the show. But if you are going to add a character, make it someone like Daryl that that people can enjoy, and hopefully they will flesh him out a little bit more as a character in the coming season. I think people are starting to ask for it more. People do want to know a little bit more about him because he has lasted longer than most people on The Walking Dead. I mean, think about how many of the original group is actually left at this point. It's not very many. So if you're going to have someone around for that many seasons, you might as well expand on them as a person. Number 4, and also from season 4, the only one on this list from season 4, is Terminus. I do like the Hunter storyline in the comics. It's very short, but Chris was a notable character. I do think Gareth is a great version of Chris. If you haven't read the comic books, Gareth in the show is essentially the show's version of Chris. He looks exactly like him. He acts very similar to Chris in the comics. Just a very, kind of smart ass and smug, but also, just really down to earth in a way, like in a weird, detached, dissociated way. The thing about the Hunters was the mental state that brought them to become cannibals. That was what was interesting about them. The Fear the Hunters arc in the comics was actually one of the smallest self-contained little storylines that involved a certain enemy that the group had to deal with. It really was only a few issues at most, and in the show, they've actually expanded the Hunter's role to an entire season long. It looks like season 5 is mostly going to deal with the group leaving Terminus with Gareth and the other Hunters and traveling to DC to try to get Eugene there for the cure. This is a huge departure from the comics where they were just kind of hunted by the Hunters. While they were hiding out in Father Gabriel's church, they were hunted for a little while, and Dale got captured, and I mean, it was very cool. But it seems like it's going to be a much bigger presence in the show. The imagery is crazy. The fact that it's a whole town and they're herding people into these cars, and they have like a full system on how to bring the people in as food, as cattle. It's really fucked up. It's really crazy. I do like that change. Number 3 on my best changes list is actually not a character or a place. It's an event, and it does tie into one of my top 2 choices. But I think it's such a significant event and such a significant change from the same event, the version of the same event in the comics, that I feel like it deserves its own spot on the list. Sophia being in the barn and the entire barn shootout scene. In the comics, Shane had already been dead at this point, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so it wasn't his call to bust open the barn, and really Rick was playing Shane's role in the comics. Like, Rick was forced to progress a lot faster in the comics due to Shane dying earlier. In the show, they let Shane carry on that advanced survivor mentality for a lot longer, and Rick kind of remained the good guy and was actually on Herschel's side. But in the comics, Rick's sitting there trying to bust down the doors. So I love Shane, and this was his moment. This was wake the fuck up, people, from him. And people don't realize, because in the comics, this moment, so first off, Sophia was not in the barn in the comics, and she actually survives and lives for a long time. I think she might still be alive in the comics. And so that was a huge moment, seeing Sophia and knowing that Shane was the one that found Sophia, even though he never even wanted to look for her. Like, he knew that she was dead, like, obviously. Like, how much time did they waste? And I mean, in the comics, like I said, it's a lot worse. Like, most of Herschel's family gets eaten by the rest of Herschel's family because of his bad decisions. And in the show, I mean, Shane really, like, saved a lot of people by doing that, and saved them a hell of a lot of time still looking for Sophia for half the goddamn season. Number 2 is the addition of Merle. Merle was an amazing character. Michael Rooker is a force of personality. He stole every single scene he was in. Even in season 1, I loved Merle. Like, he's the worst person, but he's the best character, if you understand what I mean. He's entirely entertaining to watch. I mean, he ends up getting a fucking sword hand. Are you kidding me? He comes out with a sword hand in season 3. And I really did not like season 3 much at all. And I'll talk a lot about events from season 3 in my top 5 worst changes from the comic books to the show. But one thing I loved about season 3 was the big focus on Merle. I mean, he went out like a fucking badass. I mean, he was just great in every way. Every single scene with Merle. Great. So my number 1 pick for top best change from the comic book series to the television series is Shane Walsh. Especially Shane Walsh in season 2. John Bernthal's portrayal of Shane was amazing. In the comics, he's really not a big character. I mean, the effect that he has on Rick is noted, and he was his best friend in the comics as well, but he's not around very long. He kind of almost immediately after Rick joins back up with them, Shane just explodes in the forest and attacks him very similarly to the way he does at the very end of season 2. Say what you want about Shane and the decisions he's made, but Shane was the first survivor to really just gear up and realize what it was going to take to survive in the world. The things that Shane was doing in season 1 and especially season 2 were things that the survivors now, as of like season 4 or 5, would hardly even blink at. And people treated Shane like he was the biggest villain on the series, like he was some evil douchebag. Shane definitely made some questionable decisions from a moral standpoint, such as killing Otis, busting open the barn against Herschel's wishes, arguing to kill the prisoner, and then killing the prisoner himself, and of course, attacking Rick at the very end. But most of these decisions can really be argued for. I mean, busting open the barn was definitely the right decision. It got them to stop fucking searching for Sophia. It really drove the nail into the coffin, so to speak. It let every single person there know what world they were living in. And it's basically like, wake the fuck up, people. I mean, look at how they were reacting to shooting a bunch of zombies. Like it was this horrible firing squad. Like it was this evil thing. And then look at them now. Like, that was what needed to be done. Come on, people. Shane just realized it before everybody else. Killing Otis, yes, it was fucked up. Otis was a good guy, and he refused to leave Shane behind. And him refusing to leave Shane behind was the very reason Shane had to shoot him. Shane had a choice to make, and pretty much all of his decisions were driven by protecting Lori and Carl. Carl was in a life-threatening situation. He was not going to survive without those medical supplies, and Otis refused to leave Shane behind. Shane was willing to sacrifice himself and let Otis continue on with the medical supplies to go save Carl. So let's start doing math now. If Otis refuses to leave Shane and they both stumble slowly away and eventually both get overrun by the giant horde of zombies behind them, then 3 people will die. Shane will die, Otis will die, and Carl will die. Or, if Otis was willing to leave Shane behind and let him be eaten by zombies, Otis would survive, Carl would survive. Shane was okay with this. And, the second Otis wouldn't do that, he realized that the only way to save both Carl and himself was to sacrifice Otis. I don't think it was a selfish move so much as it was a completely fucked up move that haunted him forever. Just to save Carl, just to save what was pretty much his adopted son at that point. As far as Randall, the prisoner, goes, I don't think there was any question that they couldn't just let this guy go. He knew who Maggie was, he knew where she lived, he knew where the farm was. He came from a group of a shit ton of guys with fully automatic weapons, way more fucking military force than Rick's group had at this point. And Rick had already murdered several people in their group, and they had a big shootout. So you can't let this kid go. It's the type of thing that, at the time, it seemed very, very harsh and very unforgiving to just be like, let's kill this kid. But look at the show now. Look at the characters now. Not a single character on the show would object to killing that prisoner at this point. I mean, Carol would do it herself. Carol has done worse. Rick has done worse. Everyone has done worse. You know, and it's like, put it in perspective. You can, people were looking at the show through the lens of not understanding the zombie apocalypse at that point, not understanding the lengths these characters were going to go through. Every single one of them were going to get to this dark, horrible place. And, you know, Shane was just the first one to get there. He was the one to realize what needed to be done. Shane's entire relationship with Rick in the show just brought both of those characters to the forefront. It made them such a great driving force of personality for the show. I mean, they define season 2. They're the classic best friend, brother, hero, anti-hero pairing. Just very archetypical. Their fight was amazing. Seeing what Rick has become as a result of Shane and what Shane taught him and what killing Shane taught him is great. I mean, I love Rick as a character now, and I feel like Rick really came into his own when he did kill Shane, and he kind of even adopted Shane's mannerisms a little bit. Watch the scenes right after he kills Shane. He definitely mimics the accent that John Bernthal was using on purpose when he's going into that "this is not a democracy anymore" speech. But I mean, I feel like it's a very tragic story. It was very powerful. It was very emotional. Like, this was great character development. Seeing them go through all they had been through and knowing that it really wasn't either of their faults. Like, I blame Lori for 99% of all of the problems between them two. Lori was straight up cancer. She was just whispering poison in both Shane and Rick's ears, telling Shane to stay away from her fucking family for no reason, and then fucking telling him to stay, and then telling him to go, and then telling him she's sorry and that she needs him, and telling Rick that Shane's dangerous before he'd done anything dangerous, telling Rick that Shane thinks that she hit blah blah blah, you know, all this crazy shit before Shane had done anything to really warrant it. So Lori and her crazy pregnant hormonal ass was constantly whispering poison into these two brothers, and she really just set them against each other, and it was really fucked up. And I was glad they took Lori out. I know this isn't on my list of good changes from the show, but anything to get Lori off the show sooner is a great change. So these are my top 5 best changes from the comic book series to the show. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section below if you agree or disagree. Try to keep it respectful. Make sure to keep an eye out for my top 5 worst changes from the comic book to the TV show, also coming out today. When The Walking Dead Season 5 starts, I will be doing full-length review and recaps every week following the episodes. So if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for all things The Walking Dead. Take it easy, guys. Dead.